You are not born with chains in your hands. You arrive the ordinary way, small, blinking, wrapped in the household smells of wet straw and old onions, and for a while the village assumes you will become what villages always need. Someone who can fix a cart, patch a roof, cut meat cleanly, count seed, say the right prayers at the right seasons. What sets you slightly to the side is not cruelty, not yet, but curiosity. You linger too long over frogs and joints, you ask how bones work and why edges matter, and when other children chase each other with wooden swords, you're the one behind the bakery, dissecting a mouse and arranging its little pieces as if order itself might tell you a secret. The priest frowns. Your mother hushes. Your father shrugs. He likes things sharp, he says, which is both explanation and prophecy. The world you inherit is practical and unsentimental. Your father, butcher or cooper, lives at the intersection of mess and necessity. He is comfortable where blood meets ledger. Your mother sells herbs and quiet knowledge about healing cuts you're not supposed to talk about. No one calls it a curse. What you are, quiet, steady, unsqueamish, is simply available, and in medieval towns the available are very often employed by the inevitable. One afternoon a steward looks you over the way a carpenter eyes timber. He's not squeamish, is he? Is the interview, and your father's non-committal grunt is the contract. Apprenticeship does not begin with trumpets or oaths. It begins with a door slightly outside the map of decent places, a house with no garden, a locked shed, and an owner named Greer who is called Uncle, because language is shelter and you'll need some. Greer smells like vinegar and iron. He is not cruel, he is allergic to commentary. He points. Bench, chain, bucket. You sweep, you boil water, you oil gears, and when you ask what any of it is for, he answers in the oldest pedagogy. Silence. Evenings are a curriculum of staring at fire. Occasionally Greer hands you a smoke-scented book that is not the Bible, pages on restraint technique, on the tolerances of bone, on how to keep things from breaking too soon. You do not yet understand everything you're reading. You do understand this is important, and that importance here will never raise its voice. You learn the building the way sailors learn wind, by the sounds it makes when no one is watching. The stairs have a politics. Doors rehearse their echoes. The hallway that leads below speaks a language you don't yet translate. Sleep becomes a thin blanket you hold lightly. You wake fast and often, not from fear exactly but from attention. By month's end you can tie 4 knots without looking, recognize bones by silhouette, and clean a heavy iron mask so that rust never feels invited. What you're being taught is not a trade so much as a posture. Precise hands and a mouth that saves its questions for God. The first day you are truly trusted arrives without ceremony. Greer drops a large key into your palm and says, "Basement. You know the way." The stone steps cool the air with each turn. The room below is small and very large at the same time. Low ceiling, walls that never met the sun. A central table whose wood has been sanded smooth by unpleasant conversations across centuries. Ropes hang on pegs like a wardrobe for mistakes. A wheel leans in the corner, politely disassembled. A bucket waits with the authority of a judge who never needs to raise his voice. Greer points again. Clean this, oil that, never leave the wheel loose. Last time it slipped, improvisation was required. The lesson is simple and will be repeated for the rest of your life. In this room, accidents are not surprises. They are negligence. Your promotion is a leather apron stiff with memory and gloves that have seen things and intend to see more. There is no hood, no mask, no useful anonymity from the traveling plays. You have a face and the town will remember it. The gloves become habit even when you sweep. The boots, heavy traction for floors that argue, announce you with a dull, final thud. Mothers hear the note and gather children with a practiced motion. Shopkeepers grow fascinated by their own onions. Once you smiled at a girl near the well and watched the smile fall, not because your face was wrong, but because your uniform, apron hung to dry somewhere in her imagination, had already walked in ahead of you. Competence buys you quarters, which is to say a stone rectangle bolted to the back of the municipal building, close enough to the dungeon that you can identify chain by sound. There are 2 amenities. A lock for your door and walls thick enough that most of other people's memories don't echo directly into your dreams. A priest leaves you incense with a note that says, "Please use this." Pastoral care disguised as air freshener. The smell of the place is a blend of damp wood, boiled herbs, and something metallic that clings to language without ever completely being named. You attempt decor. A chair sulks into the corner. A blanket tries to look brave. A small tapestry refuses to remain on the wall, as if the house itself rejects color. Sleep comes like a truce, not a rescue. You are, in theory, a public servant. In practice, you are public absence. Taverns shut conversations as you enter, not rudely, just surgically. Weddings misplace your invitation with convincing regret. At the market you pay in coin like everyone else, but the bread you receive nourishes last week, not today. People do not hate you, hatred requires energy. They consider you necessary in the way they consider taxes and weather, endured, sometimes cursed, rarely discussed by name. The only collegial nod you receive is from Greer, who once offered the highest praise a man like him can give, less disappointing than most. The workspace is a room people do not point at directly. Behind the town hall, through a corridor that smells of resigned wood. A door that is never labeled because everyone already knows. Inside, light loses arguments to shadow. The table in the center has the solidity of furniture that was not built so much as admitted. A chair stands to the side for purposes that do not include resting. Tools hang with domestic tidiness, hooks, clamps, screws, gears, the greatest hits of medieval anxiety. Some purely practical, others designed by men who think dares are a form of engineering. In one corner, the bucket waits with the calm of a small god. You do not ask about the bucket. You clean the bucket. Greer's religion is tidiness. Ropes are replaced before they fray. Metal is polished until it forgets how to rust. Hinges are greased until they stop sharing opinions. A messy room is an unprofessional room, he mutters while aligning shackles with a ruler. And you understand that in this basement, the ethic is not mercy versus cruelty. It is precision versus negligence. You add no flowers, no carving, no talismans. The room is already carrying enough meaning. You do not burden it with yours. Here is the part no playbill advertises. The work requires math. Not geometry of catapults or coins, but the arithmetic of bones and breath. Shoulders will tolerate a certain number of rotations before going from honesty to catastrophe. A collar has a sweet spot between firm and regrettable. The wheel, when oiled, sings in one register and warns you in another. The vice creaks in a key that means enough. Outsiders imagine brutality as flailing until the right person screams the right name. Insiders know the craft is closer to cooking, timing, temperature, and control. The difference is that no one claps when you plate the result. You develop an uncelebrated sixth sense. You can look at a man and estimate how many minutes he can afford to be brave. It is not pride. It is pattern recognition, and the magistrate appreciates patterns. He hasn't confessed, someone says with the breezy vagueness of ordering stew. Perhaps the usual. People speak to you only when they need you. The magistrate appears at your door with politeness that smells like panic. A priest insists this is for the soul, and you both pretend the rope is a sacrament. A merchant implies a rival has been saying unauthorized things and would benefit from meeting municipal procedure. Bribes never introduce themselves as bribes. They arrive in small sacks with notes about order. After the work, gratitude evaporates at a speed that puts steam to shame. Your pay is continued employment, a door that still locks, and, on good weeks, bread young enough to remember the oven. No one mentions the acoustics until they own a room like yours. Stone is a choir boy with perfect recall. Sounds do not occur. They tour the building, bounce down corridors, test the stairwell, settle in the ceiling, and on humid nights take a field trip into your pillow. You try straw in the cracks, rearrange furniture, solicit muffling advice from a blacksmith who looks at you as if you've requested silk curtains for a plague cart. In time, you learn to distinguish the original from the aftershock, this morning's voice from last week's struggle. You start sleeping with your gloves on, not because the night threatens you, but because the shape of your hands in leather convinces the air it is still yours. Compensation is theoretical. Officially, the town pays you. Unofficially, your wages are a mosaic of fines, favors, and, on one memorable afternoon, a chicken that regarded you as if it had read ahead. Some weeks there is silver. Other weeks there are turnips and compliments. You keep a little notebook anyway, columns and sums making a neat fiction of control. Once you attempt negotiation. Ropes fray, vinegar costs, iron must be sharpened. The magistrate agrees so completely you feel hopeful and then presses 1 copper into your palm for your continued silence. You do not threaten to quit. Who would you train to take your place? You patch gloves. You stretch vinegar. You learn stews that do not require names. Contrary to the staged pamphlets of cruelty, the work is regulated, though not in ways that would reassure the living. You cannot act without authorization, and authorization has uniforms. A magistrate's seal, a priest's presence, a man whose boots say he does not represent the king no matter what his mouth says. On parchment, torture is a last resort. In practice, it means they tried shouting for 10 minutes and would prefer to be home before vespers. Permanent damage is frowned upon in theory and tolerated in rumor. Records are kept on wax tablets because wax forgives. Phrases like moderate persuasion cover the distance between stern look and 4 turns of the wheel with a pause for reflection. The priest's role is partly theology, mostly warranty. Retirement is not a party. It is a vanishing. Greer hands you his gloves one morning, nods as if passing down the family cow, and walks into mist that declines to introduce where it's going. You wake to his absence the way a town wakes to winter. Everything is familiar and slightly farther away. Stories circulate of men who reinvented themselves elsewhere. Bakers whose bread had a nervous crumb, herbalists whose potions worked too well and were therefore suspicious, scarecrows who stopped charging rent. Reputation is smoke. It clings. You stay. You slow down. You take fewer assignments. You train an apprentice who learns your gait, your knots, your avoidance of adjectives. He does not thank you and you are relieved. Thanks would imply he thinks there is something to be grateful for. Years pass with the steady insistence of water in stone. Wars rehearse themselves. Taxes rise like a tide no one voted for. Plagues visit like relatives who know where the spare key is kept. You become infrastructure, not a person so much as a function, like the well or the gallows mentioned in logistics, avoided in conversation. Officials say your name in offices with doors closed. Taverns edit you out of stories the moment you walk in. A bishop asks who handles justice in this town, and the magistrate points in your direction without looking at your eyes. The bishop nods the way men nod at weather forecasts. You consider carving your initials under the bench and decide against it. The wood already remembers you in its own language. If there is a legacy, it is silence. The sudden hush of a street as your boots announce themselves. The heavy door people do not label because labels are for things we pretend not to know. The way the building's hinges speak your name even when no one else does. When you leave, whether you have the luck to do it on purpose or the grace to do it by forgetting to return, there will be no parchment thanking you for ligament-related service, no golden cup, no feast. There will be a vacancy that fills itself because the town is older than any person and knows how to keep all its necessary ugliness staffed. You were not the villain of their plays. You were the broom behind the locked door. You kept Order's floor from becoming too sticky to walk. And if you want to understand why it truly sucked, it isn't the leather or the echoes or the pay in poultry. It's this: you learned too early and too well, an arithmetic that the rest of the town could afford to ignore. You knew exactly how much pressure a joint could carry, how long a jaw could pretend, how many breaths bravery actually owned. You knew the weight of confession not as theology but as physics. You carried that math home at night and set it next to your bread, and it looked up at you like a small animal you did not ask for and could not release. You slept with gloves on so your hands would remember a use that wasn't breaking. In the morning you woke, put on the apron that smelled like boiled vinegar and regret, and went back down the stairs because the town required you to do so and no one else would. There is a reason a sealed parchment can make grown men stand straighter. A medieval banquet invitation is not a friendly dinner request. It is a controlled explosion of status. The courier arrives with colors that mean something, wax that means more, and a phrasing that means everything. An honor extended, a presence required, a performance expected. Acceptance is not free. It is a contract with witnesses. Refusing is also not free. Gossip has a hunger, and this week it is on your name. The parchment smells faintly of resin and calculation. Tailors are summoned with the urgency of medics. Servants detour to other servants to ask who else received what. In houses with ambitions, wardrobes open like arguments. Silk or velvet? French cut in an English hall? Jewels that say wealth without saying tribute? In quiet corners, relatives practice the correct way to bow so as not to seem new to the bow. Banquets are not about appetite. They are about placement in a story you did not write but will certainly edit with your behavior. The approach to the hall is choreographed like a procession of small victories. Outside, torchlight throws banners against stone, so every color wears a shadow. The smell is hay, horse, wool, and expectation. Trumpets translate arrival into obligation. They are invoices with brass throats. Gilded carriages do not roll so much as announce. Knights appear in velvet robes over polished pride. Attendants hustle with boxes of gifts. Cloth from a cousin's cousin. Coins stitched into a purse for a steward to discover. A rare bird whose existence is an argument. Others play a different game. They arrive under hoods with quiet horses, exchange words with the porter that will never be repeated, and slip inside. A hall is a theater, but every theater needs a balcony for spies. At the doors, the announcer holds a list like a scepter and reads titles that justify the existence of breath. Keeper of this, defender of that, victor of those. In the time it takes to pronounce Western marches, 3 new opinions form about you. Smiles lift like drawbridges. Bows tilt angle by angle. The familiar cures itself with novelty. By the time you cross the threshold, the evening has already recorded your opening scene. Seating is not furniture. It is policy carved in oak. The high table raised on a platform faces the room like a thesis facing footnotes. Who sits there is not a mystery. Why they sit there is the sport. 1 seat closer is a rumor of favor. 1 seat farther is a rumor of failure. Down each side, benches stretch by rank. Nobles first, knights next, then squires, merchants, clerics, and the talented remainder. Your title determines how loudly your chair is pulled out. The salt sits near the host, and the phrase above the salt is not metaphor. It is a topography of power in crystals. Being placed below it is not an insult. It is a diagnosis. Servants in soft shoes flow like water around rocks, tugging, trimming, adding a cushion here, subtracting one there. Last-minute arrivals mean last-minute arithmetic. Someone slips, quietly, 2 seats down. Someone else discovers that proximity has been postponed. In a culture that thinks with symbols, the seating chart is a liturgy. You don't just dine in your place. You declare it. A silence shaped like respect falls when the host raises a goblet. The toast is to God, to the king, to the guests, to the continuity of the house, and to the health of those who have enemies. Then the drawbridge drops and the feast begins, not in courses but in removes. Waves of dishes designed as much to communicate as to feed. Trenchers of bread line the tables like edible plates, catching grease, catching rank. Cheeses and stewed vegetables arrive first, a polite preface. Then the show. Whole peacocks reassembled with their feathers to remind guests that power can edit nature. Pies are cut and birds fly out of the center because surprise is a seasoning. Oxen appear with apples in their mouths to prove that even abundance can be organized. Guests eat with fingers and personal knives. Forks lurk suspiciously in foreign rumor. Every spice has a passport. Saffron whispers trade routes. Sugar sculpts castles to tell you how much gold a mouth can hold. The point is not satiety. The point is a kitchen that can bend the world into obedience and send it steaming to your seat. Entertainment arrives not merely to amuse but to manage pressure. Jesters enter with bells and barbs sharpened to the host's taste. A good fool is a political instrument. His insults are calibrated. He can release a feud or start one and call it humor. Minstrels tune lutes and recite epics commissioned by the vain and tolerated by the hungry. The hall laughs in tears, high table first, then the echo rolling downward. On grand nights, oddities are staged for greater effect. Dwarfs in armor with wooden swords, bears with chains that clink like the punctuation of poor decisions, a mystic who tells fortunes unless the bishop coughs, a fire eater whose performance is a collaboration with fear. The audience watches while pretending not to be watching. Meanwhile, the corners of the room are busy. Behind a curtain, a promise is made. Near a pillar, a threat is postponed. At the wall, two enemies agree on a new way to define later. The stage is a distraction that allows the plot to continue safely in the wings. Wine and ale, sometimes both together with a sprig of confidence, flow under the discipline of ritual. You do not drink before the host. You do not raise your cup with the wrong hand. You do not turn your back to the high table unless you have a death wish or a title that outruns consequences. Toasts multiply until they become a form of currency. The host watches who drains, who sips, who refuses, who forgets. A second goblet loosens the tongue. A third unlocks a rumor. A fourth heat seals a mistake to your name. The minstrel is paid to write another verse about a knight's bravery. By midnight, the verse is about the knight's inability to locate a doorway. Drunkenness is not random. It is managed. Invitations to ruin are issued in refills. Allies become honest. Rivals become clumsy. A merchant invents a confession he will need to buy back in the morning. And yet, even here there are lines. To drink before the host is to write a small manifesto of disrespect. To spill on a bishop is to discover how fast forgiveness can calculate. The feast makes its point in distribution. At the high table, attention arrives carved. Meat is offered first, tender and narrated. Sauces follow the route of favor. Dishes are escorted like dignitaries. Farther down, the same animals appear minus a certain nobility. Venison is replaced by fish. Breast gives way to leg. Broth looks like it traveled too far to remember its original intention. Clergy and scribes eat respectfully spiced humility. Merchants, if the steward is feeling generous, catch an extra spoon of sauce that already made someone important happy. Performers and spit-turners, the invisible orchestra of the evening, wait for later, when leftovers will be divided according to a hierarchy only slightly kinder than the one on display. Even the sound of service reveals rank. Silver sets down with a bow near the front. Wooden platters land with a thunk near the rear. If you must pass your plate forward for carving, you discover the theological concept of hope. Behind the stone arch, where the public does not look unless lost, the kitchen breathes like an engine. Heat roars, orders fly, and time is measured in heartbeats and smoke. Spit boys rotate meat until their arms become a kind of metronome. Sauce makers guard pots that cost more than some houses. Butchers turn animals into geometry. Scullions scour with ash and sand until the concept of clean is rebuilt from abrasion. Spices are counted like coins. Saffron is an event. Pepper is an argument. Sugar is the emperor of tonight. The master cook ranks just below the steward and just above failure. A dish that delights buys him months of security. A sauce that breaks could exile him to the latrines. Gestures rule the room. A nod for salt, a lifted chin for speed, a flat palm for do not. A ballet in steam and danger. When a platter is ready, it is not carried. It is presented, because every success must leave the kitchen dressed for diplomacy. As the candles lower themselves toward surrender, the hall changes key. Perfume goes from charming to assertive. Silk wears the day's sweat without comment. The final remove appears. Marzipan lions, spiced fruit arranged by someone who can see mathematics in color, and the table receives it as both dessert and closing statement. Servants sweep bones, collect abandoned trenchers, and listen hard without looking like they are listening. The music softens. The masks loosen. This is when the serious work resumes. Tipsy merchants whisper numbers that will become routes. Ambassadors murmur sentences that will become letters. Lovers depart in diagonals that imply scandal even when scandal is the least interesting explanation. A minor noble is administered to buy 2 patient friends and a cloak he will not remember explaining to his wife. The host chooses a vantage point not to gloat but to calculate. Who left early? Who stayed too long? Who argued with whom in a way that can be monetized later? Nothing is random this late. Every gesture is a receipt. Deference guides the dispersal. Some are offered chambers to collapse in, a kindness that also functions as surveillance. Others are helped toward carriages with a politeness that means do not come back tonight. The unlucky sleep briefly against columns and wake with a history of poor decisions printed on their sleeves. Servants begin the archaeology of aftermath. Cups turned, wax picked, benches set back to neutral, crumbs removed from the historical record. In the courtyard, the last horses snort the evening into memory. The steward drafts 2 ledgers before dawn, one about food consumed, another about capital gained. The hall finally exhale, quiet, wrecked, honest. And because every stage has a morning, the cooks fold into corners, the scullions find places to sit, and the host retires to a room where victories are counted in favors owed to him and by him. In the accounting of such nights, there are only 3 columns: what was eaten, what was said, and what will happen because of both. The banquet looks, from a distance, like a luxury attached to a calendar. Up close it is a machine with known rhythms. Invitations stoke the fire, arrivals add fuel. Seating sets the gears. Removes turn the crank. Entertainment vents steam. Wine accelerates. Distribution enforces. Kitchens sustain. Aftermath cools. If the evening succeeds, no one calls it a strategy. They call it a marvelous time. If it fails, the city will feel it like a bruise and pretend it bumped into a door. Either way, the hall will be scrubbed. The banners will be folded. The steward will sleep with numbers in his head. And the town will wake to a marketplace where the jokes minted at midnight are already coin. And that is what a banquet is in this century. A theater where food carries messages, music covers negotiations, wine loosens truths, and status eats first. It is also the most honest room of the week because it never lies about what it truly is. A map with seats, a mirror with goblets, a ledger disguised as a feast. If your picture of the Middle Ages is a gray smear of mud and resignation, step through this next door with me. The bathhouse, where a town learns to breathe together once a week. The building may look modest from the street. Stone walls, a practical roof, a small sign that pretends nothing special happens inside. But the threshold is a hinge between public grime and private pride. The air changes first. Heat that feels curated, steam that softens posture, faint notes of rosemary, lavender, and heated copper. People arrive not to become saints, but to become bearable, to themselves, to spouses, to neighbors who will sit beside them on Sunday. The bathhouse is a civic engine that burns wood and hope at the same rate. A place where the town's mirror fogs and then clears, revealing faces that would rather negotiate in warm light. The architecture is a conversation with Rome, translated into medieval budget and craft. You undress in the apoditorium, where attendants trade your cloak for a little ceremony and the promise of keeping an eye on your shoes. Vaulted ceilings bank heat like a savings account. Chimneys pull steam upward so it exhales without stealing breath. Doors open into rooms that stage temperature like acts in a play. The hot room to open pores and arguments, the warm room for talking sense into both, the cool room for the re-entry into gravity. Floors are tiled or wooden and glossed with condensation. Old rushes swept aside for fresh ones sprinkled with herbs because smell is half of cleanliness and all of reputation. Lamps cast gentler shadows than daylight. Everyone looks kinder under this physics. In richer towns, the walls carry murals that are not art so much as reassurance. This is a respectable place to be nearly naked and thoroughly social. The ritual is misnamed if we call it washing. This choreography. You sink slowly into heat that teases sweat from worry. Soap arrives not as neat hotel squares but as honest, chunky bars. Tallow and lye in most regions. Olive oil cakes where Moorish influence survived the century storms. Rubbed in with brisk competence by your own hands or by an attendant with the title rubber who handles backs you never see and shoulders you can't quite reach. Skin is then edited with a curved metal strigil, the Roman habit that survived because it works, leaving little red commas on the body that say, "We will now proceed." Hair is coaxed into obedience with vinegar scented by herbs. Beards are persuaded rather than conquered. A cool pour over the crown closes the chapter. Towels appear. Linen if you're lucky, wool if you're honest. And there is a little unspoken ceremony to the way someone wraps one around another person with care that would embarrass them on the street. What happens next explains why the bathhouse is the town's second marketplace. Warm water lowers defenses in ways no priest or magistrate can legislate. Merchants discuss grain shipments without fists or knives. A deal made in steam tends to hold because to break it is to admit you were unworthy of the warmth that sealed it. Gossip is minted into currency, traded in low voices that travel poorly outside the echo. Attendants who move between tubs and benches like librarians of bodies accidentally become archivists of news, who arrived together, who left flushed for reasons not entirely thermal, who asked for a private room and a second jug of wine. Mixed bathing, common in many regions for centuries, turns flirtation into municipal sport. Trays glide, wooden flotillas carrying fruit, small pastries, a wedge of meat if you've had a good week, and the line between dining and bathing evaporates. It is decadent and practical at once. 2 chores, 1 room, 1 roomer. Moralists object in sermons. Attendance does not falter in practice. The bathmaster smiles professionally and sells more towels. But steam turns sinister when plague learns the route. At first people argue that cleanliness saves, and there are herbs for that. Sage for air, rosemary for courage, lavender for the suggestion of holiness. Physicians prescribe warm baths to balance humors, and faith blesses water because fear prefers an object. Then deaths climb the ledger, too fast, too wide, and public confidence cracks. Communal tubs, shared towels, trays that drift between strangers, run off too close to the wells. Suddenly the bathhouse is not a refuge but a suspected accomplice. Doors are shuttered and reopened and shuttered again. Priests sprinkle, magistrates count. No one trusts steam the same way. Cities wither in stages, the bath closes, the mirror fogs with neglect, perfume tries to replace hygiene, and the myth of the permanently filthy peasant takes root not from laziness but from survival logic. The bathhouse does not deserve the accusation, but fear rarely courts accuracy. Its decline removes more than heat from the weak. It removes a place where society could be naked and civil at once. Even in its prime, the bathhouse runs on the labor no chronicle celebrates. A bathmaster manages the temperature of rooms and roomers. Attendants, men here, women there, hours split by decree. Scrub, rinse, and listen. Boys haul boiling water with faces that learn the math of angles the hard way. Their arms carry tomorrow's wages in buckets. Musicians, in grander houses, play songs that make conversation feel confidential. Cooks split their time between kitchen and poolside because appetite does not respect walls. The staff walk a borderline, respecting modesty in a space designed to soften it, offering comforts without lending reputation, keeping order with the gentle tyranny of a clean towel offered at exactly the right moment. When plague comes, they are blamed first. When prosperity returns, they are remembered last. The church, for its part, performs a familiar duet with temptation. Public caution stamped into rules, private indulgence booked in discrete hours. Reformers later tighten the knot until the knot becomes a noose for public hygiene. When the doors finally close for good in some towns, a civic rhythm dies with them, the weekly exhale that once made neighbors tolerable. Now the door opens again, but onto a road. Before it was called the Silk Road, it was stubborn paths braided by feet and necessity. By the Han Dynasty's ambition, those threads pulled into a network that stitched east to west with goods, news, and trouble. The first truth of the route is that it is not a single road. It is a bloodstream of options, bypasses, detours, and seasonal wisdom. Chang'an loads caravans with silk that shines like the promise of coin, with tea wrapped against insult, with paper that will one day remake the world's memory. The second truth is that the journey is brutal. The desert sun writes its own rules on lips and skin. Sandstorms erase lanes like an editor with a temper. Mountains turn mistakes into physics. Bandits do math faster than merchants and prefer other people's arithmetic. And yet caravans set out because risk is a language everyone on this route knows how to read. Caravan life is discipline disguised as plodding. You wake before dawn when the desert is briefly kind and the stars have not yet retired. Camels complain with the eloquence of the underpaid while accepting impossible loads with the stoicism of professionals. Silk, spices, wool, jade, ivory, sometimes even a cage holding someone else's idea of exotic. Guards hire on from people who understand the terrain with their knees and the bandits by name. Oases are salvation on a schedule. Dunhuang at the rim of the Gobi with caves that turn faith into wall art. Kashgar, a marketplace that speaks in more languages than a ledger has room for. Merv beating like a heart in a ribcage of walls. Between them stand caravanserais, fortified and spaced by the distance a thirsty animal can handle, where courtyards swallow fatigue, kitchens reheat hope, and prayers are said in corners that face different skies. Nights belong to firelight, flatbread, stories that claim truth until someone who was there raises an eyebrow, and the quiet labor of repairing straps that gave up on loyalty at noon. The cargo is a syllabus for empires. Eastward travel glassware that turns light into money, silver that buys loyalties, dyed cloth that makes power visible, wine that teaches other climates to be generous. Westward travel porcelain that refuses crude handling, tea that civilizes water, paper that demotes stone as the keeper of memory, spices that convince meat to forgive distance. Compasses and crossbows drift in trickles that will later become rivers. Soap and inks make their own arguments in corners of markets that specialize in small miracles. Not all freight is noble. Some caravans carry peacocks because wealth needs feathers. Some carry people because cruelty profits too. Goods change hands a dozen times. By the time a bolt of silk kisses Roman sunlight, no one remembers which pair of hands first loaded it, only that every stop along the way added a story and a percentage. Dangers do not queue politely, they collaborate. Bandits operate like small companies with scouts, lieutenants, and human resources policies that begin with swords. The price of passing safely is often not a payment but a relationship, protection bought by respect that tastes like tribute. Nature is less negotiable. The Taklamakan is known as the desert you enter once, the Gobi as the argument you cannot win. Sudden winds erase destinations you swore were just ahead. A misstep in a mountain pass converts profit into prayer. Heat expands the day into something that does not fit inside your body. Cold shrinks nights until they cut. Wells fail at the rude hour. The hangings for water thieves are short trials with long consequences. And yet the most devastating stowaway is smaller than sand. Disease. Fleas ride rats. Rats ride grain. Caravans ride habit. Oases that once welcomed become silent in a week. Ports inherit the disaster and amplify it. Cities invent quarantines and interceptions that look like prudence and feel like starvation. Commerce pauses, then coughs, then continues because hunger is the most persuasive ambassador. Ideas travel lighter than silk and persist longer than porcelain. Monks carry Buddhism eastward where it makes friends with local sensibilities and erects monasteries that double as hostels and libraries, filling caves with painted sermons and travelers with warm broth. Islam moves into Central Asia with a grammar for law and trade that calms markets and sharpens minds. Persian poets, Arab astronomers, Indian mathematicians, and Chinese scholars briefly adopt a shared table inside candlelit rooms that smell like ink and argument. Zoroastrian fires burn in modest steadiness. Nestorian Christians map their cross into unfamiliar alphabets. Manichaean scrolls survive by hiding in plain sight. Translators, dragomans, convert misunderstanding into invoice lines. A proverb born in one language arrives in another wearing a hat you barely recognize, and yet everyone nods because the shape of wisdom travels well. Women are the road's quiet architecture, half recorded and wholly present. In towns like Samarkand, Merv, and Turfan, women run inns, stalls, tea houses, rooms where money eats and information stretches its legs. Marriages become treaties with silk for dowry and camels as footnotes. A princess travels with a caravan the way a treaty travels with signatures. Among nomadic peoples, the Mongols, Uyghurs, and Turkic tribes, women ride, negotiate, manage herds, and decide. They write profit into days that might otherwise lose it, weave patterns that encode faith and geography, compose songs that cross languages at a walking pace. And alongside them, the shadows. Enslaved women sold as if the human body were a portable spice, some forced into palaces with walls too high to climb, some into brothels near gates where caravans end and begin, their names dissolved by commerce but their labor stitched into the route's fabric like a seam no one credits. Roads fade by degrees, the way fires die when fuel is rerouted. Ships alter the math. Why trade silk through 10 middlemen and a dozen deserts when a hull can carry more, faster, safer, and with fewer arguments? Empires harden and tax. Borders turn bureaucratic and then hostile. Suspicion grows where curiosity once kept doors ajar. The Mongol umbrella collapses and the brief safety it granted is replaced by weather more typical of history. Gusts of war, tariffs like fences, new powers with old grievances. The reformers of faith and the accountants of states prefer transactions they can count and subjects they can trust. The great inland arteries thin into capillaries, local routes for wool, fruit, pottery, prayers. Still, the ghost of the road persists. In highways and rails that accidentally trace camel prints. In alphabets that remember cousins. In spices that live forever in kitchens. In the zero that tunneled into arithmetic and emerged as a foundation. The Silk Road does not disappear. It is absorbed into memory, into metaphors, into the way you and I assume the world is crossable. Stand back now and watch the 3 rooms we visited, the bathhouse of steam, the banquet of theater, the basement of iron, and see how they each solved the same problem in different costumes. How to manage bodies, stories, and power. Then place them beside the road that stitched far rooms together and realize all of it is one conversation. Humans invent containers for heat, hunger, confession, and exchange, and then we argue about who may enter and for how long. Sometimes we do it with rosemary and linen towels. Sometimes with trumpets and salt. Sometimes with ledgers and gloves. Sometimes with caravans whose bells sound like persistence. The centuries change the props, never the grammar. We seek connection and control, cleanliness and status, truth and advantage, and we build rooms and roads to negotiate the ratio. And so when someone tells you the Middle Ages were only mud and misery, hand them a towel from the bathhouse, a goblet from the high table, a key from the basement, and a length of silk from the caravan. Ask them what they plan to do with so many invitations at once. If they are wise, they will say, listen first. If they are honest, they will confess that none of these rooms feels completely foreign. And if they are brave, they will admit that every age has its torturers and its cooks, its bathmasters and its stewards, its monks and its traders, its women whose work keeps the route alive, and its plagues that teach us what fear will close. We are only ever a step or two from one of these doors. We are only ever crossing a room. This is Layover Light. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next video.